G'day you mob, Pete here, and this is another episode of Aussie English, the number one place for anyone and everyone wanting to learn Australian English. So today I have a Goss episode for you where I sit down with my old man, my father, Ian Smisson, and we talk about the week's news, whether locally down under here in Australia or non-locally overseas in other parts of the world. Okay, and we sometimes also talk about whatever comes to mind, right? If we can think of something interesting to share with you guys related to us or Australia, we also talk about that in the Goss. So these episodes are specifically designed to try and give you content about many different topics where we're obviously speaking in English and there are multiple people having a natural and spontaneous conversation in English. So it is particularly good to improve your listening skills. In order to complement that though, I really recommend that you join the podcast membership or the academy membership at aussieenglish.com.au, where you will get access to the full transcripts of these episodes, the PDFs, the downloads, and you can also use the online PDF reader to read and listen at the same time. Okay, so if you really want to improve your listening skills fast, get the transcript, listen and read at the same time, keep practicing, and that is the quickest way to level up your English. Anyway, I've been rabbiting on a bit. I've been talking a bit. Let's just get into this episode, guys. Smack the bird, and let's get into it. Dad,
Pete,
how's it going?
it's wet.
Rain, buddy.
Well, not in Victoria, but New South Wales and Queensland. It's
We're in a
wet.
drought at the moment, aren't we?
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah, it hasn't rained much for months. This year's been so weird. I think this is one of the first years where I've really sort of started to experience climate change, the effects of climate change significantly. I remember, I think it was only, a week or two ago, we had a day that got to 25 degrees in mid-May.
I know.
Which is, it's the fifth month of the year. You're pretty much in winter and it's reaching sort of average summer day temperatures. I had the doors open in the house at 10 p.m. to air it out in May.
It's crazy.
And was just like, what the shit? And then a week later, you've
It's 10.
got, or less. Like this week, the last few days, it's been down to, I think it got to 4 degrees down here. We went to Noah's school the other day. I dropped him off at school and there were these like sword blades of ice hanging over the roof of his classroom because obviously the water or the frost had piled up on the roof and frozen solid. And then as it was defrosting, the grooves in the corrugated iron roof were kind of having ice slide down and just smashing on the ground. They looked like it was about the size of the ruler, like a 30-centimetre ruler. And there was a few of them hanging over the edge of this thing. And the kids were going berserk, throwing rocks at them, throwing sticks.
Of course they were.
I'm like, guys, you can do this, but just one, watch where you're throwing it. And two, don't stand under the ice.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to hit you in the face.
Yeah.
You muppets.
Idiots. So it's been pretty dry in Victoria, but for 2 or 3 months it's been raining in outback Queensland.
Yeah.
And so there've been now the rivers that drain that Western Queensland basin all run into Lake Eyre.
The Darling River.
No, that's the Murray-Darlings further sort of east and south. But all those rivers run into Kati, which is Lake Eyre. Yeah. And it's filling.
Yeah.
It's going to be full for, I think, the third time in 150 years or something. So
yeah, it's a very, very rare event. Are you planning a trip out there?
No, not particularly. I wouldn't mind going, but the trouble with, going to Lake Eyre is all right, but you can't go into outback Queensland because all the roads are closed.
Because of the water. Yeah, well,
the water. Well, the river crossings are impossible. So
you're going to get stuck, or if it does keep raining whilst you're there, you might get stuck in one area and have to go to another.
Like last year, this time last year, and it was July last year, I went up to southern Queensland and was going to come back down the Darling River. Yeah. And it started raining when I was in southern Queensland. The next day I was going to start the sort of week-long trip home. And the predictions were that the roads would be closed in 2 days. So I thought, no, I'm going to stay on the bitumen and just drive home.
It was nuts. I remember doing my master's degree or my master's research and doing that trip up the eastern coast of Australia during, that would have been 2010, 2011. And those floods that had hit, was it Gosford?
Yeah.
There was a few of those suburbs around, like, was it northern New South Wales that have been
north
smashed?
of Sydney.
Yeah, and when we drove through, you would go past the rivers and it would be like, that's horrifying. The amount of water, how high it was and how fast it was flowing. That's
the problem. The other side of this now is that we've had an instantaneous flooding event effectively in central northern New South Wales.
Yeah.
Where just this morning's news, there's one person dead, 3 missing, and about 50,000 people evacuated from their homes.
Wow, yeah, I think I saw the news story but didn't read it.
They're talking about a 1 in 500 year. I always wonder how they can do that, given that we haven't been collecting data for 500 years.
You should just extrapolate out.
Collecting for about 150 years.
Yeah.
But yes, you can. But yeah, 1 in 500 year flood event. 600 millimetres of rain in 48 hours.
So and that's 60 centimetres.
That's about 3 months worth of rain.
So 2 rulers deep.
Yes.
So it's like up to your waist or, most of the way up to your hips.
Yeah.
Of just rain, just bang.
In some areas.
Over what period of time?
48 hours.
God.
Yeah.
So that would have just been literally pissing down for probably that entire time.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Non-stop, right?
Yeah.
Good grief.
Yeah, so that's the downside. The upside is, the long-term rain in Western Queensland has meant that all of that sort of central desert area has now got water in it. Mm-hmm. But the downside of these weather events is that we get these, and this one was a freak weather event in that normally these sort of storm cells or water cells, fronts come across the coast and then they just keep going. Mm-hmm. This one came across and sat there for 2 days.
Yeah.
And if it rains over the ocean, nobody cares. But when it just sat there over the coast,
dumping
water on it for 2 days. And,
so is this like a subcyclone type thing?
Well, it's not cyclone. It's just the normal weather pattern. And there was a lot of water in the air, obviously, but it just sat there. And normally they just migrate out over the coast and gone.
Yeah.
This one just sat on the coast for 2 days.
So what does this mean for places like Lake Eyre? Why is this important?
Well, Lake Eyre is important because it's important ecologically because that whole area does support a huge amount of bird life.
Yeah.
And there will be 100,000 pelicans breeding.
I was about to ask, isn't that where all the pelicans breed?
The pelicans will all be going there in winter and they'll start breeding. The bizarre thing is who gave them the message? Yeah.
Do they just go there?
There's a couple of pelicans just sort of, right, Bill, Wilma, your turn. You go and fly over Lake Eyre, see if there's water in there.
Someone rang a bell.
We'll see you next month.
Exactly. And they're just like, oh shit, it's that time.
They just know.
Thousands of kilometers.
Yeah.
But do they do that every year? And they get there and they're just like, shit.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. It's like,
no,
go back.
They don't.
So
they just have these migrations, and they're probably following water.
Yeah, okay.
They're probably following the flood water down.
Because
we call it flood water, but it's in the case of the central Queensland, central Western Queensland, it's not a flood in a sense of a river will suddenly have a wall of 3 metres of water flooding down it.
Yes.
It's not
a flash flood like that.
The water just keeps going and going and going, and then the river forms. These rivers are dry most of the time.
Yeah, I think I was reading the article and it was saying that there was like an evaporative index of 20 times stronger than the amount of water that falls in Lake Eyre usually. So any water that does fall usually evaporates almost instantly.
Yes.
But then you have these events every handful of years or whatever where...
Yeah, and it's not water, it's not rain in Lake Eyre that's the thing. It's this huge basin of thousands of square kilometres in central Australia that all drains into Lake Eyre. Lake Eyre is the lowest place in Australia.
Yes,
in altitude. It's below sea level.
Yeah.
And so it's just a huge sink for all the river systems in central. It's an inland sea.
Yeah.
It's an inland sea.
Just an empty lake.
And mostly it's just hundreds of square kilometres of salt flats.
Wasn't it? So, I think the area from that article was like it's 5 times bigger than Victoria in the UK. Yeah. Like that area, that basin.
Oh, yeah.
That all drains in there. So
huge.
you're taking water, any of the water that I guess falls on that area that is 5 times the size of the United Kingdom flows into Lake Eyre.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the majority of that water will just seep into the soil, but once the soil gets waterlogged, then the water just runs into the creeks and the creeks run into the large rivers. And
what does it mean for the wildlife there, Dad?
Well, the wildlife will be able to breed. That's the thing. And, so even a lot of the mammals and reptiles and things will just be hanging around for years waiting for food in order to breed. So.
Interesting. Like, there's so many really cool animals out there that have adapted to deal with that intermittent water presence, right? So the water's not there frequently enough for them to constantly be active and breeding on a regular basis. So they go into torpor or hibernate, or, so I think like frogs.
Estivation, right? I think.
Yeah,
for
the
breeding.
Frogs will dig down a metre or so and just stay in the soil.
Frogs will just,
they shed their skin.
They shed their skin and create this cocoon around themselves.
And just wait.
Yeah.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And like there's also those little brine shrimp or whatever they are that live in eggs just in the soil.
The egg sitting in the soil or in the salt.
For years. And then as soon as
water hits,
supercharged and they start hatching out.
And you get thousands of tons of them in the water.
But the cool thing, I remember doing my PhD on native Australian rats, and one of the species that I was potentially going to study at the time was the long-haired rat, Rattus villosissimus. And it is from that area of northern Australia in the sort of arid areas. And it lives in I think 3 different areas that its population contracts to when it's dry. And they're around those sort of like bores or where there's a lot of water that's always there. But then when you have these periods of prolonged rain and, a lot of water availability, those populations, being rats, breed up like crazy.
They go through huge breeding cycles.
If you have 1 or 2 years in a row, you'll go up like 2, 3, 4 orders of magnitude in terms of their population numbers. So they may go from a few thousand to billions. Something ridiculous.
And the next drought year, they're all dead.
Yeah, well, that's it. And so I remember my supervisor at the time of me starting the PhD, I think he had just completed a trip through Central Australia because of the water at the time, around those times of the floods in Gosford. Yeah, that would have been. And he was just effectively picking them up on the side of the road dead because they were all just dying everywhere. But the cool thing about them was that they go through these sort of punctuated evolution periods because their population explodes and then it bottlenecks and then it explodes and then it bottlenecks. And so the thing that I was potentially going to look at was...
speciation?
Somewhat, but chromosomal rearrangements.
Yes.
Because in Rattus in particular, we're getting a bit nerdy, but they have many different numbers of chromosomes across the different species, even though they're very closely related. So
because the chromosomes are just split.
Well, they have these
recombined.
It's called like Johnsonian or whatever it is events where the chromosomes can sort of like split apart or join together and all of that sort of stuff. But as a result, that can lead to speciation where they can't interbreed with each other anymore because the chromosomes don't line up properly during fertilization after you've gone through meiosis. But so that was one of those really cool animals that is affected by this kind of sudden flooding of areas in northern Australia. And I think it's not just them. It's going to be so many of those organisms, birds, fish, reptiles, bugs that just are. It's seemingly when it's dry, you would go there and be like, this is Mars, nothing lives here.
Yeah.
And then if you were to come back in one of these wet events, or especially after a prolonged period of wet time where you've got all of the vegetation's grown up, all the animals have populated.
Oh, that happens if you go through you don't even need the rivers to come. You can go through some of those central desert areas after a prolonged period of rain.
Yeah.
And they're just green. And people go, desert?
Yeah, I know.
It's just green as far as you can see.
But that's what I would like to experience.
Because the plant life just pops up and then the water disappears and it doesn't rain again. And that's one of the reasons. Australian deserts are different from deserts in Europe and America in that American desert, we don't have cacti.
Yep.
Or succulents in general because they rely on having effectively a continuous supply, low level amount of water, but a continuous supply. Yeah. We have areas in Australia that it won't rain for 50 years.
Yeah, you could plant a cactus there and
it'll be dead
fine.
in a year.
It'll be fine initially and then eventually the water evaporates out.
Exactly. So, but then when you do get rain, the seeds are there and they just germinate, bang, and they're gone. Yeah, they're up and flowering.
They've evolved to just like produce as much seed as quickly as possible and just leave that in the soil.
Yes.
And the same with those shrimp. Just grow up, breed quickly and just put out as many eggs as possible as you can in the soil. It must be so crazy for them too because from the subjective point of view of these organisms,
they're only really ever experiencing the desert in this place when it is incredibly lush.
Yeah, they're not experiencing the desert at all.
Yeah, exactly. So it must be so funny. Like they're obviously.
I don't live in a desert. I live in paradise.
Yeah, exactly. What do you mean it's dry? It's kind of like it'd be like they're going to sleep for a long period of time, like as a species, and they never actually ever get to experience on a conscious level what it's like when it's dry.
Well, it's like kids. Little kids never understand the concept of it being dark outside because they're awake during the day and they sleep all night.
Yeah,
and you said this idea that it gets dark. What?
I'm writing an essay at the moment for one of my students who's an artist in Poland, and he does like modern kind of biology and science related kind of art, and asked me to contribute to one of his ebooks. And part of the thing that I was writing about was the subjective experience of other animals, their consciousness, and how as humans we can never truly understand what that's like. There's this famous article by, I think his name is Thomas Nagel, that was like what it is to be a bat, or what it's like to be a bat. And his whole thing was like scientifically you can try and analyze what their brain is, what their eyes are like, how their sense of touch works, their sense of smell, but on a subjective human level you can never really truly ever experience what that is like objectively. And I was thinking, like, with that, I brought up microbats and talking about echolocation. What the hell is that like? What the hell is it like to get, send out sound and receive it back and get an image in your brain of what's going on out there? Yeah. And the thing I was thinking was, do they realize there's day? Like, do these microbats live an entire life, especially the ones that live in, like, caves? They're going to be in there the whole time. They may see a little bit of light at the edge of the cave or whatever, if they're awake during the day, but it's still going to be pretty much pitch black.
Yep.
And then they come out when it's pitch black at night. And so it's like, do they think the entire world is just always in darkness? Yeah. And the same for organisms that live deep in the ocean, and never actually see light. You're sort of like...
live under huge pressure.
Did you see that what is that fish called? That has, is it a lamprey or something? The thing that has that thing on its head, the fish.
Lanternfish.
It uses that as it has this little lure. Bioluminescent lure on the front of its head. It's this small fish that lives really far down in the water, and it uses it in darkness to attract animals and then eats them as they come close. Someone photographed one that had swum to the surface of the ocean, probably about a year ago or whatever, and there were all these photos, and it got there and effectively died because of the pressure.
Just explode.
Exactly. But it was like all these people made these images and shared them like on Reddit and the internet. It was like, I finally got to see it. This is what it was like. There was light the whole time. Like that the fish went on this epic journey and then realized, oh my God.
There is light.
So it just reminded me of that.
This little yellow thing in front of me.
Yeah. So I don't know. It is interesting to think about. These areas and not change.
Things that are even that different. Like, how does a cat experience the world?
Yeah.
We think of them as being very similar to us. They're mammals. They're visual. They smell. They taste. They hear.
Yeah.
But I know even a dog in particular. Dogs get 70-80% of their sensory perception is smell.
Well, I looked up the stats on that, right? It was something like, I think, between 10,000 and 100,000 times stronger than our sense of smell.
Yeah.
Partly because they have, I think, billions of receptors in their nose. And then the other part is they have a space 40 times bigger in their brain to analyze the smells that they get.
Exactly.
And I was mentioning that in the essay, that they don't really rely on their eyes to understand what's going on. And I think the analogy I used was, if they walked into a room where someone's cooking a stew, we would smell that there's a stew being cooked. They would smell all the ingredients in it.
Yeah.
They would smell the fact that who the cook was, if they were anxious, where they bought the ingredients, what bag they had been brought to the house in. They would get
the
all
detergent that the pot was washed in a week ago.
They would get all of this other extra information that us as humans would get all meshed together in a very dull kind of basic smell of the stew.
Brown.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then like bees, right? Bees seeing the world, they can't see red, but they can see ultraviolet.
Well, they see ultraviolet,
and they see flowers.
Shifted. Birds are the same.
All these flowers have like ultraviolet being reflected off them.
Yes.
That effectively displays
tracking
where
devices
to go
into the
flower to get the nectar or the pollen and everything. And we don't see that. We just see a single. Well, quite often these flowers are bright colours or a single colour, like a rose. Whereas they would see the rose and it would look completely different because they can't see red, and there would be ultraviolet and other stuff on there. So, and they're compound eyes.
Yes.
And what the hell is that like?
I know.
Seeing the world through 1,000 eyes out of each, or 1,000 lenses out of each side of your face, and having a 360 view, and what depth can they see at?
Yeah.
How does their brain interpret?
I think that's purely designed to pick up movement.
Yeah, exactly. It's nuts, right? And I guess they're following smell, or they're using their antennae to follow smell to try and get to the flowers.
Exactly.
But the eyes are just like, keep away from any shit that's near me.
That's right.
Like anything that gets into my frame, just get away. And they see it 200 frames per second instead of 60 like us.
I know.
So yeah, anyway.
Well, 20 for us, 25.
Nerding out a bunch on that, and just thinking about how different these animals are, and their lifestyles in places like the deserts. And it must be funny where you experience the world like temporally, so differently as well. And your life is so short, and then the next generation could be 10 years later.
Yep.
Separated by that amount of time too is freaky.
Cicadas.
Yeah.
Many cicadas have a 17-year life cycle
under the ground,
where the adult life is a few days to eat, mate, lay eggs, and then the eggs just sit there and sit there, and 17 years later they pop out and you go, why 17 years? What happened in evolution that created this? So
I guess
weird
it
stuff
could be
that
one of
goes
those
on.
things where it wasn't necessarily a negative. Could have been 1 year, could have been 50 years. It doesn't really matter because it gets done at the end of the day and they're protected underground. What was I going to say? We saw some of those cicadas down at the lake recently. There were these holes in the ground about the size of your thumb.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, what the fuck came out of that?
Yeah.
Like, is that a spider hole? But it was like, it was a freshly dug hole where all the dirt had gone around. And I'm like, what animal was that?
Yeah.
Like, that's not normal. And then all of a sudden there were all these cicada shells all over the trees that I could see everywhere. And I was like, that's what it's got to be. The weird thing that I think
they crawl out,
freaked me out the most.
The last nymph stage crawls out and then turns into the adult.
Well, they climb up a tree and then come out. Yeah. But the thing that I think really freaked me out was we found one of these mounds of dirt. So it was just like this freshly dug, like a mole hill. Yeah. And that there was something under there pushing the dirt up.
Oh, really?
And I was like, what the hell is this? And then when I tried to move the dirt away quickly to see, it obviously just went back down the hole. And I was like, God damn it. But then we found the cicada shells.
Yes.
Anyway, good chat about that. So what birds would you be hunting if you went to Lake Eyre? Because there are so many birds being attracted there at the moment. Would there be any specific ones you'd be chasing?
Well, it'd be mostly pelicans, I think. But
yep.
Yeah. And look, there are lots of, obviously, water birds, because that's all there is water.
Yeah, well, and the animals they're going to eat, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So would the pelicans be eating a lot there? Would they be chasing fish?
They have to. They've got to feed their young.
Yeah. Crazy.
Where does the fish come from?
Higher up down the rivers?
Yeah.
Like they
little creeks and things higher up.
So they get washed down and then they breed up there.
Yeah.
So it's interesting too. Does that mean the pelicans need to wait a certain amouut of time?
Yes,
otherwise they get there.
Otherwise there's no food source.
Yeah. It's just water, guys.
Yeah.
What the hell?
And it's too salty to drink.
Yeah, that's just nuts.
Yeah.
Okay, so you'd be checking out the pelicans.
I think I would. Yeah, pelicans are cool.
They're a fucking weird looking bird.
They are.
Are they one of the strangest looking birds you reckon?
I don't know. There's all sorts of strange looking birds, but pelicans are pretty strange. And the strange thing about pelicans is that they're almost everywhere in the world you go, other than polar regions, there are pelicans.
Yeah.
But there are only 8 species of pelicans in the world.
They just go everywhere. There's obviously enough movement.
Yeah.
It's like whales, right? Where you sort of like, you see their distributions on a map and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like that's the entire Southern Ocean, you know, around Antarctica.
Exactly.
And you're like, yeah, I guess they can move large distances.
There's one species of pelican in Australia.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, they clearly they dead-ended themselves into an evolutionary state, a behavioural and morphological state, and they're so good at it that speciation effectively ended.
Well, beyond that, they're moving around throughout that entire region.
They don't, exactly.
Gene flow there to prevent any kind of speciation.
Yeah, it's sort of like, well, they're not going to fly across the Pacific Ocean, so there are 2 species in America.
Yeah.
So
wow. Yeah, because I know there's those. They're sort of grey.
The brown pelican.
Is that the one that's out in on the Florida Everglades and everything? Because I know they've got some really cool ones out there. Yeah. That are quite colourful, aren't they?
Yeah,
at least during the breeding season.
Yeah. Well, even our pelicans are pretty colourful in their faces. Mm-hmm. They go sort of their bills go bright pink and their face goes blue and yellow.
Do you reckon they'd be good eating? I feel like, isn't there a Rodney Rude joke?
There's
one of those old comedians is like, he ate a fucking pelican. Yeah. Who eats a fucking pelican? And he went to jail for 2 years. He ate a fucking pelican.
Yeah, there's an old gag about that, but it's a sort of a long Dorothy Dixon gag, so I won't bother telling it. But
cool, okay, that can be the cliffhanger.
The punchline is that all right, guy ends up in court because he's caught eating a penguin. Mm-hmm. And, the story goes on and on and on and on. And then he eventually gets charged and sentenced. And the judge finally says, so I've got to ask one question. What does it taste like? A cross between a goanna and a koala.
Jesus, yeah. Oh, God. Anyway, we can leave it there. Thanks for hanging out, everyone.
All right, see ya.
See ya.